a couple of weeks ago, we played a clip of a billionaire going to a Morehouse College and announcing during his speech, and it's always the last refuge of a guy who can't come up with a really catchy speech, and that is to, at graduation, that is to pay off all the loans of everybody in the audience, and everybody's walked away. That is the best speech I've ever heard, and the guy didn't have to really say anything.
Yeah, cheating.
A little cheating, but if you got it, flaunt it. That's what I always say. Anyways, and you'll recall that we suggested that this is problematic, and insofar as that it identifies the problem, but offers not even a Band-Aid, almost like a tiny Band-Aid, like a Band-Aid that doesn't even cover the actual gaping wound, but it identifies the problem, but then gives a false solution, which sets us off on the complete wrong track.
It sort of does a mission accomplished sort of routine.
Exactly. It in fact lets the air out of the tires, but we still have the problem of the air in the tire. And here, apparently, Fox News had a slow news day, and so they circled back around on Giordano's criticism of this. I don't know why it took them 10 days to get to this, but apparently they had a slow news day, and they're like, remember the ratings that we got about... Now, you'll recall the original clip, Kilmeade, not only, sort of made it out, accidentally recognized the problem of student debt by saying, all these people, it's going to be great for them, but also then accidentally read off the story of how this billionaire attributed his success to the busing program that sent him to a good school in a white neighborhood. Kilmeade could not get past the opportunity to extol the virtues of white people without realizing that he was actually extolling the necessity for busing and the problems inherent with the way that we fund public education.
And segregate it.
Yes. But here they are circling back around to criticize the criticism of this.
Wow, billionaire Robert Smith's incredible generosity under fire, believe it or not. Right in the New York Times saying, quote, a gift like this can make people believe that billionaires are taking care of their problems and distract us from other ways which others in finance are working to cause problems like student debt. Our next guest responded with a new op-ed who's afraid of Robert Smith's philanthropy. Wall Street Journal columnist, Fox News contributor Jason Riley. Jason, how could something so nice be perceived so negative?
Well, it's a sort of sign of the times here of how polarized we are. Every act gets to be politicized, even acts of generosity like this. And this was just a very generous thing to do. About 400 college graduates says, I'll wipe out your student debts. And instead of just patting this guy on the back and saying thank you, he becomes a target of criticism.
Right, because all these kids get their student loan pays off. It doesn't solve the problem of the fact that there's tuition.
Right.
And income inequality.
Pause it for 1 second. All I can think
job,
about
Brian.
when I see this.
Wait, Brian's on it here. It doesn't solve the problem of tuition or income inequality.
All I can see is like when I see this, it's just like, wow, everything is so corrupt. I mean, just like they're doing this segment 10 days later. The guy had nothing to write about. He's making up basically that Giordano actually criticized the guy
as an individual.
Like, oh, he should be getting a pat on the shoulder. Instead, he's getting, he's getting pied essentially. They can't even honestly look at the critique itself, and it's so desperate and so. But continue. I love it.
Pays off. It doesn't solve the problem of the fact that there's tuition.
Right.
And income inequality.
And he's a billionaire. He's the wealthiest black man in America.
Self-made.
According to Forbes. Right. Comes from a pretty modest background. Started out as a chemical engineer, got into investment banking, and then started his own private equity firm about 20 years ago, and has been tremendously successful. And he gives away a lot of his money, and this is one of the ways he does it. College scholarships. Now he's paying off student debt. He does a lot for inner city kids, exposing them to nature and music and so forth. And he's in a long tradition of wealthy philanthropists in this country, going back to John D. Rockefeller and J.P. Morgan and Julius Rosenberg, Rosenwald, who ran Sears Roebuck back when it was the biggest retailer in America. They all gave back. They all gave to communities to help the less privileged, particularly educational causes. So I hope he ignores these critics because he is in very, very good company.
Wow.
I think he just identified a bunch of people who created enormous societal problems.
Yeah.
And then tried to wash away their brand
But
problem
even if
by
they
giving,
didn't, I mean, even if they hadn't,
that is Jared Ardis's point. Well, no, right. Even if
they hadn't
true.
caused these problems, even if there was some way where a billionaire could amass their money without it being indicative of a larger structural problem, but they themselves somehow garnered all this money.
Well, my point is being a billionaire is that structural
Well, yes,
problem.
I understand. But even if somehow it wasn't a structural problem, but it is, even if they had amassed their money in a way that was completely benign, and hurt no one and denied no one of resources in some way, which I think is probably impossible, but I'm just stipulating for the sake of argument. The criticism is still valid. The criticism is a structural one. The criticism is all the things that are positive about what this person did is really an argument for how detrimental the rest of the debt is for the millions of other people. And we're just staring in the face of all this potential benefit that could come from this. And the only reason why at the end of the day we're not offering this to other people is because of those people who have all that money and don't want to lose it in some fashion or another. Now, Elizabeth Warren made the point the other day, 2 cents on every dollar, over $50 million on that wealth. It wouldn't lose that much, but it would pay for all that stuff.
Well, Comrade Kilmeade gets it.
He does. That's like Kilmeade's like segment, like Rachel Maddow used to do one like talk me off the ledge or talk me down segment. This is Kilmeade like save me from myself.
Talk me back to the right.
I have a conscience. Can you help me?
Send me a lifeline.
When I just sort of think through things on my own, I realize it's kind of messed up to commit genocide against the Iranians, and we need to do something about wealth inequality. Can we get a guest to help me out on that?
Now, look, we haven't talked about...